in this month in tech history, there's some pretty big milestones that passed through. Like on February 25th, Apple sells their 10 billionth song.
10 billionth.
So on I don't know, the iTunes store, I think it's called now, or yeah, on iTunes, they sold 10 billion songs.
That was back in 2010.
Yep. That's crazy.
That was
It's like,
back in 2010. $1 each song. 99 cents, actually.
yeah,
That's
it's pretty
insane.
crazy.
Yeah, totally.
And then also on February 23rd,
Oh,
2005,
wait. Are you looking at episode 7 or episode 6?
7.
I have. Oh, yeah. That's good. Yeah. I went backwards.
Yeah. February 23rd, 2005, the first mobile phone virus happened. I think that's pretty funny. Like, who
I'm
thought
telling you.
phones could get viruses too? But they're little computers in your hand, so
They are. Yeah. That was on the little Symbian OS from Nokia. Little Symbian had a virus. Let me ask you something. There's one in here that caught my eye.
which one?
On February 26th,
The first web browser?
the first web browser,
Wow. Yeah, that is a pretty big milestone too.
1991. I just thought it was interesting because I mean you just finished learning a few months back you just finished learning about HTML
Mm-hmm.
and you look at how much HTML can do now in the browser and how simple it was back in 1981. It was very basic, but something more interesting than the first browser that I mean it's related, right? Is that HTML is actually about 20 years older than the first browser.
Oh wow.
And so it wasn't called HTML until the browser came out, but it was called SGML. I believe that it's SGML. Well, HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. SGML is simple and general markup language, if I'm not mistaken. And so it was just a way of encoding documents, right? So if you look at what Microsoft Word is today, it's like you go and highlight something and you highlight it and or you bold it or you italicize it. You actually, it's what they call a WYSIWYG, right? What you see is what you get. It's an acronym called WYSIWYG.
Mm-hmm.
Well, prior to Microsoft Word and its WYSIWYG, you had no WYSIWYG. It was just a word processor. And if you wanted to bold something, you had to use some type of markup language.
Oh wow.
And you didn't get to see how it looked bold until you printed it out.
Oh wow.
And so you would see all these markup, in between your word processor. But yeah, it was kind of interesting. Well, one other thing I think is pretty interesting. On February 27th, the V92 was introduced. Do you know what that? Here, I want to share my screen.
Okay.
It's the V92, right?
Yep.
What is that? Can you tell?
There's some inputs there, so that looks like the where you plug in the internet thing. The internet cable.
Are you that young?
There's some pluggy things right there, and then there's like maybe a headphone jack.
This was prior to Bluetooth. Yeah, so no, those are not internet ports. So the internet port is what they call what is it called? The internet port is called an Rj45 Jack. Okay, and that one has a total of 8 connections, and the wires are kind of twisted together. And that's where it by the fact that they're twisted together, it produces the speed and the transmission. But those are actually phone jacks. They're RJ11s.
Oh, okay.
And RJ11s have a receiver. They receive communication and it sends communication. And then it has a positive and negative because they would provide their own power. So back in the day, when you plug your phone in, your power can go out, but it didn't affect the phone line because the phone had its own power. So it's kind of, I mean,
Okay.
it was an interesting fact, But in order to access the internet, US Robotic made tons and tons of money, okay? Because they created modems, and they actually started with a V24 and then a V36, and then they came out with the V92. So a V24 is 2400 baud rate, okay? 2400 baud rate. That would be about 0.001% of the internet speed that you currently have right now with broadband.
Wow.
So, I think it was 24 kilobits per second. So 24,000 bytes per second. And then they came up with the V36. I think it was V36, where they came up with 3,600 kilobytes per second. And then the V92, you would think is like, oh my goodness, 9,200, kilobytes. But no, it was actually 56 kilobytes. I don't know why they call it a V92. It was only 56 kilobytes. And so when you got the 56 kilobytes, it's like, all right, game on. Let's get online and let's do some gaming, because that was fast, But then ISDN came out, and then cable came out with their version, and internet speeds just went out of control. And I mean, we're traveling at light speeds at this point, where I think I have 100 gigabits. So we're talking not megabytes, we're talking kilobytes. So kilobyte is 1,000, megabytes is 1 million, and gigabyte is 1,000 million.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot more.
Tons more. I mean, it's ridiculously more. And that 0.001% may be too big for what this used to give us. But this is how we would access the internet. If you didn't have this in your computer, you didn't have access to the internet. And then you had to pay like $20 a month for dial-up service. So, and it sucked. So cool. That was exciting to talk about.
Yeah.